This is Laser Pog. It's basically your average game of Pogs, but the Pogs are created on a laser cutter, and these ones all feature people from the maker community. Now, why did I make Laser Pog? Well, when my friends at MakerPi sent me the P3 Pro to review, I wanted to have a project that would really showcase everything that this machine is capable of. So I guess first we should talk a little bit about the MakerPi P3 Pro. The MakerPi P3 Pro is a large format IDEX 3D printer with interchangeable heads. This means that it can go from doing IDEX 3D prints with multi-material or even doing duplicate or mirror mode prints to, with the change of a head, doing color mixing prints or even laser engraving. It has a variety of heads that you can swap out, including high temperature and flexible filament extruders. The P3 Pro is a super capable machine and it's built extremely well. However, it's not for everybody. The P3 Pro really requires a lot of effort on the part of the user to use, not just on the hardware side, though it does require you every time that you change the heads to remove and then swap out and then put back in 4 screws every single time. It's not too much to do, but at the same time it kind of enters into the calculus of, do I want to change the heads for this job or just leave it where it is for a little while longer? But as it stands right now, the tool chain for it is practically non-existent, relying instead on third-party tools and third-party plugins to create the G-code that you need to run it, and in some cases requiring you to edit that G-code by hand to make it compliant with the processes of this machine. Now, none of this is a deal breaker if you're the sort of person who can really enjoy hacking a machine and trying to make it work. And I have been able to test all of its functionality and I can endorse it and say, yes, it works. But at the same time, well, one thing that I love about 3D printing is that over the years, it's gotten easier and easier to use. When I started in 3D printing, this sort of half-finished tool chain that the user pretty much has to not only figure out, but sometimes develop the tools and pass them on to others to make it easier to use, that was common. That happened all the time. But these days, with kids opening up an Ender 3 on Christmas and printing on Boxing Day, this sort of machine that requires so much effort of its user feels like a relic of 3D printing's past. It's one step forward in functionality and 2 steps back in ease of use. But still, I can't deny that it is a step forward and it is moving towards the future where 3D printing isn't just about 3D printing, but it's about a fully featured making machine. And the MakerPi P3 Pro is an exciting step in that direction in many ways. Now, the thing about Pogs is when they first came out, I was just a little bit old for them, but I recently was reminded about them and I thought, you know what? I want to check them out. Now, fortunately, I found a website where somebody showed the measurements of the Pogs and the Slammers, and I was able to use those to recreate them. Now, to 3D print the Slammer, I decided to use the mixed material mode. Now, the color mixing mode on this machine is a little bit interesting. The filament out detectors, which fortunately it has, but it just kind of hangs out here on the cable that plugs into the head, and there's only one of them. So while you have 2 filaments going in, you can only really check one of them if it's going to run out. And on this print, when I was testing the multi-material mixing mode, the one filament ran out. So while it was doing a gradient with 100% red at the bottom and 0% red at the top and 100% transparent green at the top, the transparent green ran out before we got there, resulting in, it looks like this poor cat got caught in Thanos' snap. I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. Now, this multi-mixing mode I discovered had something rather interesting. The bottom of this vase was printed in yellow and red, and the result is that it's kind of orangish. Now, this was printed using their constant, so it was going to be just a 50-50 mix the whole way. But as it goes around, you'll see it's more red on one side and more yellow on the other. Now, again, the filament ran out, and I tried to put it in, the filament ran out again. So this print is a bust. But I did it again, this time with yellow and blue, and you'll notice that once again, it didn't finish, but it's absolutely beautiful with more yellow on one side, more blue on the other as it goes around. It kind of creates a like illusionary effect as it goes around, and I kind of love it. But what happened? Why didn't the blue make it the whole way? I was trying to figure that out myself. The blue hadn't run out, and it turned out that I had to take the multi-material head apart to figure it out. And now all I need to do is get at the stepper motors here, right? Oh my gosh, the screws for the stepper motor. I have to remove the motherboard to get it to... Okay, well, here we go. Let's keep... It never ends. There was a jam. There was a jam in the blue filament. There was a jam in the blue filament of yellow filament. The yellow filament backwashed into the blue where it was liquid, then re-solidified and caused a jam in the blue's feed. Yikes. I don't know how often that's going to happen, but it makes doing large multi-material prints not a reliable thing. Still, I can... slight modification to this one, and I could have a candy bowl, provided that it didn't have a hollow bottom. But you know, it was going to work well enough for doing my slammer. And you might notice that I have 3 slammers here. That's because 2 of these slammers printed with extremely poor looking bottoms. And that is because I hope that this will be fixed in the future. But for some reason, right now, when I try to adjust the Z height setting to make it so that I don't need to print with a raft, the setting doesn't save. Like at the moment that I hit save and go out, it's back to printing, hovering above the build plate just a little bit too much. And so I had to print with a raft, and it took me 3 prints to get a raft that was half decent on the bottom. And I say half decent because it's not great. I'm not entirely pleased with the fact that I still have to use a raft. Now, that is something that MakerPi can fix with just a simple firmware upgrade. So I'm not upset about that. I'm just saying that the way it is right now, I had to use a raft, and the result was 3 slammers, 2 of which are just ugly. Then over to the laser engraver, and I will say that the P3's instructions on using the laser engraver, on generating G-code for the laser engraver, are extremely thin on the ground. The instructions basically say, we recommend you use Inkscape, but do they tell you which plugin to use in Inkscape? Nope. Do they tell you how to find them? Nope. You are entirely at the will of figuring it out yourself. And I don't understand why editing G-code by hand is necessary. Why they can't just, when you switch it over to laser mode, to just start reading G-code the way that other programs output it. Start using G-code like a laser cutter. And you know, the answer is probably, well, they need to be able to set the Z height. Well, then have a menu option that says focus, set the Z height, and then just use that Z height. That's the way other people have done it. MakerPi could do this, and they might. It's possible by the time that you're watching this that there will be a firmware update and that this will no longer be an issue. And that's kind of the point, that most of my complaints about this machine could be solved either by updating the firmware or writing some software. If they were to write their own slicer that, you know, you had a button on for laser mode and all of a sudden you're outputting G-code for the laser. And what would be even cooler is if you took that G-code and plugged it in This should be able to say, oh wait, you haven't got the laser plugged in, so swap the head and do that. So I feel like most of the problems that I had with this machine could be solved with software solutions. Save the fact that removing the head and swapping them out requires 4 screws and a minor issue where when you're doing IDEX 3D printing and you have to level the heads, that you have to take apart the second head, and it's just think about the users a little bit more and make that easier. But okay, I figure out how to get the laser engraving, and I found another plugin where I could get it to do a sustained vector. I would say cut, but that's not really the right word because it might not cut. It might just be a sustained etch. And I did it in some cardboard. Now, I kind of overdid it on the engraving and I burnt right through to the corrugated part. But I wanted to see if there was a chance, any chance, that this could cut through cardboard. So I did about 15 passes, slowed it way down and turned the laser on high power. And after I did that, I cut the edge of this to see how far it went. And it did. It almost went all the way through the cardboard. And I felt like there was a chance if I just did a few more passes that this might cut all the way through the cardboard. But this creates another problem. You don't want to be cutting onto the magnetic build plate because it'll destroy it, but they don't provide anything else for you to cut on. Fortunately, I had a metallic sheet that I could put on there and it would magnetically sit on. Now, the downside to this is if the laser hits this, it might bounce off into the room and damage you or stuff around you. So you really, really want to get yourself some glasses so that when you use the laser, you protect your eyes. And you might even want to think about either building an enclosure or just finding a box that you can just put around here and hide the laser from everybody else in the room. Just keep everybody safe from this laser. It is absolutely not safe the way that it is. And MakerPi didn't send me these glasses, so you're going to have to order them separately. Yeah, open air lasers are not safe. Also get yourself a HEPA filter fan or an air filtration unit or something, and be very careful with the materials that you put in here. Check the data safety sheets about anything that you're not sure about because you don't want to be outgassing toxic fumes. In fact, this is where I'm going to make my big disclaimer about the people who showed up in Laser Pog. All of these amazing makers whose logos they submitted or I just kind of took them off of Twitter, none of them agreed to me using an open air laser to etching it onto a piece of chipboard so that I could make this game. None of them even knew that I was doing that. So don't take this as an endorsement for this from them. This is just me saying these are amazing people who I respect and admire and wanted to include in this project just because I think that they're cool and you should check them out. So now that I had the tool chain figured out for engraving my own stuff, I bought some chipboard and started engraving the chipboard. And then I tried cutting the chipboard. And again, this required 2 separate plugins into Inkscape, one to do the engraving, the other to do the cutting, but fortunately they lined up well. But unfortunately, chipboard is too dense for this laser to cut through. It just did not go through whatsoever. Now, that doesn't mean that this project was dead. That just meant that I had to get creative, and there were a couple of options. One option is I could get a Pog die cutter and just pop them out myself. The other option is I have a full spectrum Muse laser cutter available to me at the makerspace where I work. This is a 45 watt laser that has all the safety features and an absolutely slick user interface. Now, we're not comparing apples to apples here. This machine costs about the same as a Glowforge, and it has a lot of accoutrement with it, including a water cooler and an air filtration system. It is a big, bad, serious machine, but in the time that it took the P3 to just engrave one of these Pogs, The Full Spectrum Muse had engraved and cut all the way through a dozen Pogs. So while I did prove that it was possible to make Pogs, even dithered Pogs, with the P3, these Pogs were not done on the P3. These were done on the Muse. Okay, so now I've got the Pogs, I've got the Slammer, and I should probably figure out how one plays Pogs. So how to play Pogs. Okay, step 1, stack up 10 to 15 Pogs. I appear to have overshot a little bit. Okay, let's just, that's 10 to 15 of them. Take your slammer in your index and thumb and slam it down on the Pogs. Okay, keep any of the Pogs that flip face up. So it looks like I get a Joel Telling, a 3D Medic, Maker Viking, Brian Vines, and Faudus Mint. Those are mine. Stack up the remaining Pogs and play passes to the next player. What, that's it? That's how you play Pogs? You don't refill. The second player gets to play with less Pogs. So the first player gets all the... This game is terrible. You know, I've been thinking about it, and I think I figured out a way that we can make Pogs just a little bit better. It's not going to introduce any level of skill like in marbles, so it's not going to be great. But here's my idea. You start with, I don't know what, as many Pogs as you have, but you only make your stack of half of them, and the rest of them get scattered randomly, and that's your refill pile. Then the first player plays, however many they take, and then you refill it from the refill pile, and the second player gets to play with a stack that's approximately the same size. They play, and some of them are taken out, some of them are refilled, and then when you have no more refills, then you just keep going until all the Pogs are gone. Now, why does this make Pogs better? Well, in Pogs, being a collectible game, there's usually one Pog that everybody actually wants. This is the one that the game was formed around. That is to say, this particular game was formed because everybody knew that somebody had this Pog and they said, hey, I tell you what, you just bring this one, we'll bring the rest. We just want to have a chance at playing this. This is the Pog of Desire. Now, in this case, I've colored it golden because it's going to be something that's easy to spot in the discard pile. And in this case, I used Billy Rubin's Pog for it because when I showed this on Twitter, Billy Rubin looked at herself on this and said, I'm on a coin. I feel like a princess. Well, here you go, princess. So in this example game, Billy Rubin is going to be our object of desire. No, wait, not that. So in this example game, Billy Rubin is going to be the one that we all want to get our hands on. Nope. So in this example game, we all want Billy. No. You know what? We're not doing this. The golden Pog is one of my Pogs now. I am now your object of desire. Now, the rules are you randomly choose Pogs to put into the stack that you're going to slam with and randomly leave the rest in your discard pile. But somehow, with knowing that everybody wants this one and it standing out so much against the rest of them, just randomly, it's never going to end up in the pile at the start. And when the pile gets knocked off and we randomly refill it to hand it to the next player, keeping in mind that the person doing the refilling is the person who just slammed it, they're not going to randomly choose that one either. That's going to stay out until the very end of the game. It adds a level of suspense, of questioning, are we going to get this one? When is it going? And who is it going to go to? Because, yeah, you refill onto the top, so that golden one is going to be right at the top. It's going to be really easy. This encourages people who have the big, heavy slammers maybe not to hit so hard so that they don't deplete the stack too quickly. Or this encourages people to play just a little bit strategically because you know that as soon as this one enters play, well, the game's not over. Obviously, the winner is the person who takes home the most Pogs, but but we all know who the winner really is. Well, that was my idea for maybe making Pog a little bit better, and that is my project for using the MakerPi P3. I want to thank my friends at MakerPi for sending this to me. It was a lot of fun to play with it and see what it can do, and it was inspiring the future that this really opens up for making machines. It's exciting every time seeing these machines getting better and better, and oh, what the future holds. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. While you're checking out this cool thing posted by one of you on the Whatchamakin channel on my Discord, why don't you open up the cards and see what deep dive into the topics of this video you can do. Man, this is really cool. Yeah, I really enjoy it when people connect with me on social media. That's why I've got links to all the socials in the description, and I hope you'll check them out. I've also got a Patreon, which you can check out here, and I'll tell you a little secret about the suggested videos. This is the one that YouTube thinks that you'll like. This is the one, though, that I think you'll like. Which one of us is right? Only one way to know for sure. Gotta watch them both. And remember, safety first, because I really do care about you, and see you next time.